The leader of Russia recently, Vladimir Putin, replaced his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, with a new one, Andrei Borisov. Now, this is very relevant to the U.S.'s interests in the region. Borisov is a bureaucratic economist going back to the days of communism that is friends and buddies with Putin. This new DM has literally no military experience, which is not the norm for a person like this to run a military department in any country, let alone Russia. I think what's really going on here is that Putin is trying to consolidate even more power over the war and thus more power over his own government. He's going to have all his buddies running the government, just like in many other dictatorial states. Therefore, this power is going to lead to a war that may go on forever with the Ukraine, because there's so much money in this war. Because of this consolidation of power, I really don't think you're going to have an end to this particular war. Putin is basically trying to rebuild part of the Russian Empire. He is mainly after land and oil. Like I said, Borisov is a bureaucratic economist, and Putin is going to have even more power to keep this war going on and on forever. I personally don't think Putin is that big of a threat to the U.S. I actually fear China and North Korea a lot more than Putin. Don't believe all the propaganda you see in the media. I really believe that he isn't going to get as far as what everybody thinks because of NATO and other factors. I think the only way we're going to be able to get out of these wars, both of them so to speak, is if Trump gets back into the presidency. Without Trump getting back into the presidency and negotiating peace deals, I don't think these wars are ever going to end, meaning they could go on for another 5 to 10 more years in Gaza and in the Ukraine. Trump is a great negotiator and can get us out of this. We are now wasting billions of dollars all over the globe on these particular wars. If Trump does not win, you can kiss the federal government goodbye as is. The war party, or the so-called war party, or the war faction in power, as I refer to it, will keep these wars going on forever because there's so much money in war, and the people internationally, the globalists and the international bankers that make all this money off these wars will continue to keep them going. There's so much money in war in the global military-industrial complex that the wars could go on forever. The uniparty would be running our government, and that power structure exists in both parties. I think Trump is the only one that can end this and get out of it, because the other people are all controlled by money that run the government within the uniparty, meaning both parties. I upload all my videos on Wednesdays. Please make a note of that. I wanted to take a few seconds now to talk about NATO and a little bit about the history of NATO. Personally, I think this war in the Ukraine was nothing more than a setup to make money for the weapons manufacturers and the international bankers and the globalists that run the world. Money runs the world. Basically, NATO was an entity after World War II that was created to supposedly stop war. Well, if they wanted to stop war, why did they encroach on Putin? They've encroached on his border, and they knew he'd respond, so they therefore knew this was going to happen. NATO was traditionally made up of Western European, Atlantic, and Northern European countries to stop war. I'm a firm believer that countries like Poland and many of these Western Slavic lands and other Eastern European lands do not belong in NATO for this very reason. They encroached on Putin, they knew this would happen, and now we are in a mess wasting billions of dollars on this war through tax money so a few rich people can make a ton off these wars. Even Tulsi Gabbard who's a former congressman and a former presidential candidate as a Democrat, has said pretty much what I'm saying. They've encroached on Putin. They knew this was going to happen. It reeks of a setup. And now the U.S. is in a complete mess, and we need to get out of this or we're going to bankrupt ourselves. NATO was not meant to be a global power the way this is now being implemented. They encroached on his border, and now we have serious problems because of it. Do your research on NATO. I think you will probably agree with me. I'm no friend of Putin. I'm no fan of him. However, the reality is we can't be in wars all over the globe. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your consideration. It's free to subscribe.